Hello, listeners. I am Debarati Deb, faculty of the Department of Management Studies, Salesian College, Siliguri campus. In my last talk, I had discussed about warehousing management, and while discussing the lesson over there, we came across a topic just-in-time inventory management, which is an important aspect in the phenomenon of warehousing management. So today I'm going to talk about just-in-time inventory management, and after I finish up on this, I'll take up the topic of different types of stores that is required for managing the inventory in the best way possible. So let us start with just-in-time inventory management first. As I told that day also, this is a concept which has been generated from Japan, and this is also called a lean manufacturing process, and sometimes it is also referred to as Toyota Production System or TPS. It is actually an inventory strategy that manufacturers use to increase the efficiency. The process involves ordering and receiving inventory for production, and customer sells only as it is needed to produce goods and not before that. This type of inventory management provides many benefits but is not without its downsides also, and relies heavily on factors such as a strong, fast and efficient network of suppliers. Now let us talk about the purpose of this just-in-time management, why it is actually required in this competitive scenario of inventory management. See, ordering inventory on an as-needed basis means that the company does not hold any safety stock and it operates with continuously low inventory levels. This strategy helps companies lower their inventory carrying cost, increase efficiency and decrease the wastages. Just in time requires manufacturers to be very accurate in forecasts for the demand for their products. Just in time inventory management is a positive cost-cutting inventory management strategy, although it also leads to stock out sometimes. The goal of JIT is to improve a company's return on investment by reducing the non-essential costs that are associated with holding more than enough inventory levels. Some competing inventory management systems exist, including short cycle manufacturing known as SCM, continuous flow manufacturing CFM, and demand flow manufacturing known as DFM. The JIT inventory system represents a shift away from the older just-in-case strategy in which producers carried much larger inventories of stock and raw materials in case they needed to produce more units because of the higher demand in the market. Now let us know about the history also about it. This type of management technique is actually originated in Japan, as I already told, and is often attributed to Toyota. However, many believe that Japan's shipyards were the first to develop and successfully implement this approach. Its origins are seen as threefold. They are Japan's post-war lack of cash, lack of space for big factories and inventory, and Japan's lack of natural resources. Thus, the Japanese leaned out their processes and JIT was actually born. News about the process and success of JIT reached the western shores in the year 1977, with implementations in the US and other developed countries beginning in the year 1980, and gradually the system became popular, and now most of the developed countries which always strive to bring efficiency in their management, they carry on this type of inventory management process. Now, what are the benefits of it? JIT offers advantages such as allowing manufacturers to keep production runs short and move on to new products quickly and easily if needed. Companies using JIT no longer need to maintain a huge expanse of warehouse space to store the inventory. A firm also no longer needs to spend large amount of money on raw materials for production because it only orders exactly what it needs, which frees up cash flow for other uses. Now I'll talk about the strategy that is actually used in the Toyota. Toyota started using GIT inventory controls in the year 1970 and took more than 15 years to perfect its process. Actually, not precisely 1970, in the 70s, and they have kept on processing the technique in order to achieve excellence. Toyota sends off orders to purchase production parts only when it receives new orders from customers. Toyota and GIT manufacturing will succeed as long as the company maintains a steady production rate with high quality workmanship and no machine breakdowns at the plant that could stall the production. Additionally, it needs reliable suppliers that can always deliver parts quickly and the ability to efficiently assemble machines that put together its vehicles. Now, there are risks also. GIT inventories can bring about disruptions in the supply chain. It only takes one supplier of raw materials who has a breakdown and cannot deliver the goods on the time. It is enough to shut down a manufacturer's entire production process. A customer order for goods that surpasses the company's forecasted expectations may cause part shortages that delay the delivery of finished products to the ultimate customers. Now I'll tell about you an example of disruption, which is a true story. In the year 1997, a fire that took place at a brake parts plant owned by the company Aisin destroyed its entire capacity to produce a P-valve, which is a part for the Toyota vehicles. Aisin was the sole supplier of this part for Toyota, and the company had to shut down production for several weeks. Because of Toyota's GIT inventory levels, it ran out of P-valve parts after just one day. This situation could have been devastated Toyota's entire supply line. Fortunately, one of Aisin's suppliers was able to retool and start manufacturing the necessary P-valves after just 2 days. Nevertheless, the fire cost Toyota nearly $15 billion in lost revenue and 70,000 cars. The problem trickled through to other suppliers for Toyota as well. Some suppliers were forced to shut down because the auto manufacturer didn't need their parts to complete any cars on the assembly line, as only one of the part was being unable to be delivered. Okay, so that was all about GIT, inventory management system. Now I'll talk about another topic in the 4th chapter itself in production management, which is about the different types of stores. You can see in the unit number 4 it is written as centralized and decentralized types of stores, but these are not enough. There are more explanation required if you talk about the entire types of stores available. Now let us have a brief discussion on it. I will specifically mention the names while I'll go on discussing. If you're interested in this topic and if you want to note down the points, you can note down. Otherwise, you can get the materials in the website also. There are different books available. Also in the website called materialsmanagement.info, you can get these topics. So I'll just give you a brief discussion on it. Elaborated discussion you can write on your own, and while I'll discuss, you can note down the points whatever I'm saying. Depending upon the nature of business and the location of action, the raw material, marketplace, etc., store's layout is actually planned. Hence, it is necessary to have a look at different types or classification of the stores that actually the store managers follow. Basically, there are two broad classifications. First one is functional stores and the second one is physical stores. The functional stores, which actually depends on the use to which the material is put. I'll go elaborately discuss. Let me talk first about the physical stores. It depends on the physical stores depends on the size and the location of the plant. Okay, so now have an elaborated discussion on the different types of functional stores. First one is raw material stores. This is where the raw materials used in the factory are stored. Simple. Usually this is the largest kind, and the location should be such that it is situated alongside a railway, canal or a river. Where the deliveries are by road, there must be adequate space for trucks to move, turn and park. If sufficient provision is not made for quick and easy loading or unloading, heavy demurrage can result. Next type of store is Production store. Production also requires a large number of materials, generally called consumables, eye shields, cutting oils, gloves, aprons, jigs, small tools, etc. A store stocking such items is called a production store. Third one is general store. Various kinds of miscellaneous items like paints, brushes, cleaning materials, woods are kept here. In some cases where there is no production store, the materials mentioned in the production store are kept in the general store. So it will act as a support system to the second one that I discussed, that is production store. The fourth one is tool store. All kinds of tools, measuring instruments, saws, then small tools like hammers, pliers, etc., or just they are stored here. And sometimes the things which we sell normally as scrap also are stored here. The steel scrap is usually kept separately, preferably in the open. Some metal scrap like copper can be very costly and should therefore be kept in safety in covered stores, and for that reason the tool stores can be used. Next one is salvage store. Here materials rejected on the factory floor are stored either with a view to salvage them or to sell them as scrap. Steel scrap is usually kept separately, preferably in the open. Some metal scrap like copper can be very costly and should therefore be kept safely in the covered locations. Next one is packing store. Packing materials are kept here, and these include wood for making crates, cardboard, cartons or bottles, whatever, as in the pharmaceutical company, or sometimes even empty cylinders are stored here. Next one is spare parts store. These spares are usually required by maintenance, for repair or overhauling of equipment and machinery in the factory. Such a store can also have spares and components which have been manufactured in plant or purchased from outside and meant for production. This is also called a finished parts store, semi-finished parts store, or sometimes also component store. Next one is receipt store. This is where goods are received from vendors or those cleared from the railway station, airport or the docks are kept. Next one is quarantine store. Here materials received from outside awaiting inspection, and this is usually a part of the receipt store. The term quarantine is used because often inspection may not be completed in a day. A lab test may be required for specific items. In such cases, these materials are placed in the quarantine store. Next one is finished goods store. As the name implies, finished products of the company meant for dispatch to customers or for transfer to another stock point or distribution centers are usually kept here. Next one is work in progress store. In many cases, a particular shops produce an item in batches. This is neither a raw materials nor finished goods. It is an intermediate state. In some instances, the spare parts store can also be called a WIP store, where the unfinished goods are stocked for future use. Then stationery store. This stationery store keeps office stationery for issue to different departments of the company itself. Next one is bonded store. This is a store in which goods on which the customs or excise duty has not been yet paid, they are kept. Next one is the refrigerated store. As the name implies, this type of store is used for storage of perishable items like fruit, meat, chemicals, medicine, vegetables, etc. Then we have flammable material store. This is used for the storage of highly combustive material like oil, paints, etc. This store consists of separate compartments partitioned by firewalls, which is done with a view to prevent movement of flames from one part to the other in case a fire breaks up. Then we have transit shades. These are normally roofed shades without any walls and open on four sides and are mainly intended to protect goods from sun and rain. Then we have dry tanks. Dry tanks are used for long-term storage and are constructed entirely with steel except for a concrete floor. I'm running out of time actually. So next one is let us do one thing. We will discuss on the functional stores types, on the physical stores types in the next talk. So till then, have a nice day and thank you for listening again. Bye bye.
This and other episodes of Radio EduPods, Radio for Learning, are available on Listen to My Radio app at 6 p.m. from Monday to Friday and at 6 a.m. from Tuesday to Saturday. All episodes are available on Salesian TV YouTube channel. Share, like and subscribe Salesian TV, the ultimate learning resource channel.